Most workers don't quit over the job. They quit over the schedule. You can have fair pay, decent supervisors, safe equipment, and still watch people walk out because they can't predict when they'll see their kids or get a full day off.
Yeah, and the wild part is, on paper, that same job can look great. The posting says full-time, steady hours, but behind the scenes, shifts are flipping, overtime changes day to day, and suddenly the job that looked solid just doesn't fit a real life anymore.
You're listening to Workers.com Staffing Pulse, Insights from the Frontline. I'm Jennifer, personnel manager and longtime staffing nerd, and today we're talking about something that quietly makes or breaks industrial jobs, scheduling power, how we match shifts to real life instead of just filling boxes on a spreadsheet.
And I'm Sam, staffing manager. If you work in warehouse, manufacturing, light industrial, or you recruit for those roles, this is for you. We're going to show you how the schedule can be either your biggest turnover problem or a strategic advantage that keeps people showing up.
Let's start where the pain actually shows up. Picture this. You've got a good forklift operator. Solid attendance, reliable, doesn't cause drama. They like the work. Then peak season hits. Suddenly, they're getting texts the night before saying, "We need you 2 hours early tomorrow," or "We're switching you to nights next week, just for a bit."
At first, they roll with it. They move some things around. They call in a favor for childcare. But then it's the third week in a row. They haven't had a real Sunday off in a month. Overtime is stacking on top of already long shifts, and every week feels like a new surprise.
Exactly. Here's what we see over and over. They don't usually come in and say, "I hate this job." They say, "I never know when I'm working. I can't plan anything. My family's frustrated. I'm exhausted." And then they no call. Or they tell the recruiter, "Can you find me something more stable?"
From the outside, it looks like a performance issue. But underneath, it's a schedule issue. The schedule is the job, especially in industrial and light industrial, where people are juggling second jobs, kids, appointments, maybe school. If the schedule is chaos, the job becomes chaos.
So let's define the problem clearly. This isn't just about people preferring days over nights. The real problem is unpredictable or unrealistic schedules. That's what quietly drives call-offs, burnout, and turnover.
We see a few big flavors of this. There's the last-minute schedule change where people are finding out about their shift for tomorrow at 7 p.m. tonight. There's the surprise overtime where folks technically signed up for it, but no one explained what mandatory when needed actually looks like. And then there's rotating shifts that sound fair in theory, but in real life they wreck sleep and childcare.
And here's something employers don't always connect. Every time the schedule changes late or feels unclear, you increase the mental load on your team. It takes energy to constantly replan life. Who's picking up the kids? When to sleep? When you can make appointments? Over time, that mental load turns into burnout.
And that burnout doesn't always show up as somebody yelling or storming out. It shows up as more call-offs. More, "I overslept," more people who ghost after a couple of weeks because they're just done trying to keep up.
Now, to be fair to employers and supervisors listening, this is not about blaming operations. Production changes, orders spike, machines go down. There are absolutely real business reasons why schedules move around.
Right. We get that the line still has to run. What we're saying is, if we treat scheduling like a strategic staffing tool instead of a last-second fire drill, we can keep coverage and also keep people. It's not either or.
So let's dig into 3 of the most common scheduling pitfalls we see, and what they really do to recruiting and retention. First up, last-minute changes.
This is the classic, we'll post next week's schedule on Friday, maybe. Or worse, people don't see the new schedule until a group text goes out Sunday afternoon. That kind of thing almost guarantees some folks will miss the memo.
From a staffing side, last-minute changes make it almost impossible for us to set expectations with candidates. We might place someone who says, "I'm fine with occasional overtime," and then the reality on the floor feels like constant surprises. That mismatch is where we lose them.
And each time we lose them, you're starting over. New job postings, new interviews, new onboarding, more training. That's real cost, not just inconvenience.
Pitfall number 2, unclear overtime expectations. That phrase in postings, overtime as needed, can mean anything from an extra hour once a month to 60-hour weeks for 3 months straight.
And people fill in the blank based on what they hope it means. Employers think they've been transparent. Workers think they're signing up for something totally different. Then when peak season hits and everyone's told you're staying late, the trust gets damaged fast.
The third pitfall is rotating shifts. On paper, rotating can feel fair. Everyone takes a turn on nights, everyone shares weekends. But our bodies and our lives don't rotate that easily. Switching sleep patterns every couple of weeks is brutal, especially for people with young kids or second jobs.
I've talked to candidates who say, "I could handle nights," or "I could handle days, but I can't handle switching between them all the time." That constant swing is where we see a lot of early exits.
So if those are the traps, what does better look like? Let's walk through a simple framework employers and staffing pros can use when you're planning schedules or writing job orders. 4 steps. Baseline coverage, predictable core schedules, planned use of temps for peaks, and clear communication.
Step 1. Baseline coverage. Before we talk about flexibility or overtime, you need to know your true minimum. How many people do you really need on each shift to keep things running safely and efficiently on a normal week, not during your busiest day ever, your standard demand?
Once you have that baseline, step 2 is predictable core schedules. That means you design set schedules that people can build a life around. For example, a fixed Monday through Friday day shift, or a steady weekend shift, or a consistent night shift where people know, these are my days, this is my time.
Predictable doesn't have to mean boring. You can still offer a few schedule options. But the key is, whatever you offer, stick to it as much as possible. If changes are rare and planned, people can adjust. If every week looks different, they can't.
Step 3. Planned use of temps for peaks. This is where staffing agencies can really help. Instead of burning out your poor team with surprise overtime every time an order spikes, build peaks into your staffing plan. Decide ahead of time. When demand hits X, we bring in Y number of temp workers.
Exactly. Use temps as a buffer so your full-time folks stay on relatively stable schedules. That way, overtime becomes a tool you manage, not a constant emergency. And you can be honest with candidates. Here's the normal week. Here's what peak season looks like. Here's how often it happens.
Which brings us to step 4, clear communication in job orders and postings. This is where a lot of the breakdown happens. If you're an employer, don't just tell your staffing partner, first shift, some OT. Tell us, start and end times, average hours per week, typical OT during busy season, how far in advance schedules are posted.
And if you're a staffing pro writing the posting, translate that clearly. Instead of flexible hours, say, core schedule is Monday, Friday, 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. with overtime up to 10 hours per week during peak season, usually communicated at least one day in advance. That level of detail filters in people who can really do it.
When candidates know what they're signing up for, they self-select better. You might get a few fewer applicants, but you'll get more of the right ones, and they'll stay longer because the job matches what they were told.
All right, let's switch gears and talk directly to job seekers for a minute. If you're looking at warehouse, manufacturing, or skilled trades roles, how do you evaluate a schedule before you say yes?
First, slow down and really read the schedule details, if they're even there. Don't skip straight to the pay rate. Look for listed start and end times, mention of weekends, and language around overtime. If anything sounds vague, flexible, as needed, varied shifts, that's your cue to ask more questions.
And it's okay to ask. Your recruiter or interviewer should be able to tell you, in simple terms, what a typical week looks like. So here are a few questions you can literally write down and bring with you.
Question 1. What are the exact start and end times for this shift? Not just first shift or second shift. You want to know, are we talking 6 a.m. to 2:30? 7 to 3:30? That hour can really matter for commuting or school drop-off.
Question 2. How far in advance is the schedule posted? If they say, we post 2 weeks at a time, that's a win for planning. If they say, usually a few days before, just know you'll need to be more flexible in your life to make that work.
Question 3. What does overtime really look like here? Ask for specifics. You can say, in a normal month, about how many hours of OT do people work? And what happens during your busiest season? Good employers will have a ballpark answer.
And then question 4, which people sometimes forget. How often do shifts change? For example, if I'm hired for days, am I ever moved to nights or weekends? How much notice would I get? That tells you how stable the schedule really is.
Now, there's another side to this, being realistic with yourself. Before you apply, take a hard look at your life. When can you truly work consistently? If you have childcare only on weekdays, a rotating weekend schedule might sound okay for the money, but it will be stressful fast.
Yeah, and be honest with your recruiter. If you can't ever work past 5 p.m., say that up front. It's better to miss out on a job that doesn't fit than to start, struggle, and feel like you failed when the real issue was the schedule.
For some folks, the trade-off goes the other way. Maybe you're okay with nights if it means higher pay and quieter shifts. Or you're open to weekends if it means you can handle weekday responsibilities. The key is choose on purpose, not out of pressure.
All right, let's bring this home with some concrete action steps. One for employers and staffing pros, and one for job seekers that you can take today, not 6 months from now.
If you're an employer or staffing professional, here's your one change for the very next requisition you send or job you post. Add one paragraph that clearly describes the schedule and overtime. Just one. Spell out typical hours, how often OT happens, and how much notice people usually get.
And if you're thinking, we don't track that, that's your signal to start paying attention. Even just talking with your supervisors and saying, what does a normal week really look like, is a big step toward more honest postings and better fits.
For job seekers, your action step is this. Before you accept any offer, ask at least 2 of those schedule questions we listed. Don't just focus on the hourly rate. Ask about start times, overtime, or how often shifts change, whatever matters most to you.
If the answers feel fuzzy or you sense a lot of "it depends, we'll see," pause and think about whether that uncertainty will work with your life. Sometimes the right move is to wait for a role that fits better instead of jumping into a schedule that's going to be a constant fight.
Let's do a quick recap of the top 3 takeaways from today.
Number 1. In industrial and light industrial work, the schedule is often the real reason people stay or leave. Unpredictable shifts, surprise overtime, and rotating schedules quietly drive burnout and turnover.
Number 2. Employers and staffing pros can treat scheduling as a strategic lever. Define your baseline coverage, build predictable core schedules, plan ahead to use temps during peaks, and communicate the reality clearly in job orders and postings.
Number 3. Job seekers have more power than they think. By asking specific schedule questions and being honest about your availability, you can choose roles that actually fit your real life, not just your paycheck. That's it for this episode of Workers.com Staffing Pulse. Match the schedule to real life, and you'll see fewer call-offs, better retention, and a lot less frustration on both sides of the hiring table.
Thanks for listening. And remember, strong teams start with realistic schedules. Let's dive in next time with another frontline staffing insight. Until next time.